Hello and welcome to the Keiwear Show, where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. I am your host, Keisha Mayo, and I know every week I say we have a very special guest, but I tell you today we have a very special guest. We have Mayor Torrance Harvey. He's an author, a high school history teacher. He's a published poet. He's a motivational speaker and also the mayor of Newburgh, New York. Welcome to the show, Mayor Torrance. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, and please introduce yourself to my viewers.
I really appreciate you having me on your wonderful show.
Thank you.
I'm Mayor Torrance Harvey, mayor of the city of Newburgh, New York. And I am also, as was mentioned, a published poet. I have two books of poetry that I've written and published, Yasa and Kofa and America. And I also have a children's book, Hey, Mr. Mayor, My Neighbor, coming out at the end of April or the beginning of May.
Yes, and I'm so happy that you came on today. I remember when we first met, it was actually at Barnes and Nobles. We both did a book signing there. And I tell you, it was such an honor just being in the presence of greatness. When I look at your bio, it's just like, what has he not done? Not what has he done, but what didn't he do? It was just so amazing. But I wanted to know, how was your upbringing?
So I am the youngest of 8 children. My mom and dad, had 8 children. I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is about 25 to 30 minutes north of Newburgh, where I currently live and where I'm currently serving as the mayor of the city. Mm-hmm. And so, Poughkeepsie and Newburgh, New York are often rival cities. Mm-hmm. They're an hour and a half north of New York City. So Newburgh is actually closer to New York City than Poughkeepsie is. And so grew up in the youngest of 8. I have an identical twin brother, Torrance Harvey. Mm-hmm. Yep. And he and I grew up very close. We were the babies of the family. Mm-hmm. So, we were able to see all the mistakes from our older brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And we were the youngest of 8, the first to graduate from high school, first to graduate from college, and the first to earn master's degrees in our family. Our parents had about an 8th or 9th grade education.
Wow.
They were very hardworking African-American parents. My mom and dad owned grocery stores and hot dog trucks. Mm-hmm. My parents were entrepreneurs. They taught us how to earn an honest living and to be law-abiding citizens. Mm-hmm. And another thing, we took great pride in being African-American. My mother being from the South, North Carolina. My dad being born in Arkansas, but grew up in Akron, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And so, my mom, she had a husband who she grew up with in North Carolina, but my biological dad raised us all, our 8. Right. 8. And so we grew up. My mom was about 38 years old when she had my brother and I. Mm-hmm. And my dad was about 40 years old when my brother and I were born. So I always look at them as older, more mature parents from what my reality was. Right. My older siblings, grew up when they were much younger. So we grew up in the house projects in Poughkeepsie.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, I know you said, that you and your brother were the first 2 that graduated from college. So who was your inspiration? What made y'all say, you know what? We were the first ones, that can make this happen. Who was that inspiration that made y'all want to go further in your careers? Well, further in your education?
Well, there were 2 men, 2 African-American men, the Reverend Saul Williams of Baptist Temple Church in Newburgh, New York. And it was a deacon in that church who was a Morehouse man, and his name was Larry D. Lindsay. Morehouse graduate class of 1973. And so those two men, when my mom and dad separated and went their own ways in the early 1990s, I was 19. My twin brother and I were 19 years old, and we actually slept in a van for 6 months
Wow.
when my parents split. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so after 28 years of them being together and everything, my dad thought, well, I'm the youngest. My twin brother and I are the youngest. We were 19 years old. We had a high school diploma, and we had more education than he and my mom had.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my dad, felt that it was time for him to live his own life, and he and my mom, went their separate ways. And for 6 months, we slept in a van, and we met a pastor. We were working. We were doing a lot of television and film at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Club MTV with Downtown Julie Brown,
Mm-hmm.
uh, international TV show, dance show. So we did that from the time we were in high school until we finished high school. And prior to that, we were doing television commercials and ABC after school special for Oprah Winfrey called Girlfriend. And so Torino and I had established ourselves as the TNT Twins.
Yeah, I read that. The hip hop group.
We were a hip hop dance group,
Mm-hmm.
TNT, Dynamite. We were a part of the golden era of hip hop. And to
Right.
be African American and dancing on MTV
Mm-hmm.
in the late '80s, early '90s, that was like because it was a few years prior to that they wouldn't play African American music videos on MTV. You
Right.
know,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jackson broke that color barrier, being the first African American pop R&B artist to be shown on MTV. That's when it was real MTV in the '80s. When he broke that color barrier with his music videos. But yeah, so we went through a really difficult transition after we finished high school. We met the pastor, Saul Williams, and his church staff and his wife. They were preparing for their oldest daughter's wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and we worked at an eatery called Stanley's Eatery, which was inside a Holiday Inn hotel
Mm-hmm.
in Fishkill, New York. And so there was a big, event space in that hotel and restaurant, and so the Gatanis brothers, who were brothers like me and my brother, they hired us maybe a couple years prior to that, and because we always kept jobs, we always worked. We were doing television, film, off
Right.
Broadway theater, and we were
And you
even in high
actually
school.
went to school for that, right?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
'cause I know I read where you have your bachelor's. You tell us about your education because I know you have your bachelor's and master's in acting, but I'll let you share that.
Yeah, so Torino and I, we went when we met these two African American men. They said, you guys got to get into someone's school. They got us into a very special program for students who were first generation college students, right, where their parents had never gone to college, and it
Mhm.
was known as the HEOP program, which is the Higher Education Opportunity Program, and it was at Mount St. Mary College right here in Newburgh, New York.
Mhm.
And they have the state universities have EOP, education opportunity programs, and the private colleges in New York have HEOP, which is higher education opportunity program. And so we got into that program.
Mhm.
We were 20 years old by this time, and we moved to Newburgh. We had settled into Newburgh when I was 19, and then at 20, a year later, they said we got to get you guys into someone's school. And we always had our minds set on a historically black college and university. We wanted to go to Morehouse College.
Right.
We always admired Martin Luther King Jr., who was a Morehouse graduate, class of 1948, Spike Lee, class of 1979, Julian Bond, Maynard Jackson, the first African American mayor of
Mhm.
Atlanta, Georgia. So these men were like heroic figures. And so when we met the pastor in Newburgh, Saul
Mhm.
Williams at Baptist Temple Church, and Larry D. Lindsay, deacon. He was a deacon, Larry D. Lindsay, who was a Morehouse graduate.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, we want to go to Morehouse, but we had to take, small steps. We got to the 4-year college, Mount St. Mary College, in the HEOP program, where they put us in a 6-week program, sort of like a pre-college program, the summer before you fully matriculate in the fall as a freshman.
Okay.
So we took classes during the 6-week summer program: reading, writing, literature, computer science, mathematics, college algebra, all this stuff, so we can get prepped up for our freshman year. And that was because, we were students whose parents had never gone to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was new to the whole family, And so, so we get into the Mount St. Mary College. And, first semester, right out the back, Dean's List for both of us. Second semester, Dean's List.
Wow.
Freshman year, 3.6, 3.7 grade point average.
Awesome.
Yeah, we hit the ground running, because after you go through some, where our parents had split up, and we hit kind of rock bottom, living in a van for 6 months. We said, we told the people in the admissions department and HEOP program, we said, if you give us this opportunity, the Harvey twins, we're not sleeping.
Right.
We don't have time for sleep. We're gonna hit these books hard. And we did. And every semester we were on Dean's List. So we were interested in theater because we come from the performing arts background. So we studied Shakespeare, we studied Chekhov. We were theater majors and also business marketing majors. So we were double majors at Mount St. Mary College. We studied in London, England.
Wow.
For a semester. They pay for everything too. We
lesson.
studied abroad our sophomore year, and we were at Thames Valley University in London, England, and we studied at the Royal Court Theatre. And so we had an amazing experience with that, being in London, Stratford.
And I guess that was the blessing of, you having your brother, because y'all were each other's strength. You know what I mean? Even though y'all were sleeping in the car and stuff like that, y'all were able to encourage each other and to lift each other up. So you had that support. Both of y'all knew what y'all wanted. Y'all knew y'all wanted better and wanted greater. So that was good that you had that support. But I know you also have your master's as well, right?
Yeah. So when we did 2 years at Mount St. Mary College, got into Morehouse College, which is where we wanted to go to begin with. Historically Black College and University. We studied theater while at Morehouse, and we got a bachelor's degree in acting. And all of our training was at Spelman, because the theater program is at Spelman College, which is right across the street from Morehouse College. Now, Morehouse is all male college, African American, and Spelman is all female. So we enjoyed our time at Spelman. And so we graduated in 1997. Torino went on to study at Stella Adler in New York City Theater, and I went on to the MFA program at DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois, at the theater school, which used to be formerly known as the Goodman School of Drama. Okay. And so that was the MFA, Master of Fine Arts degree program in acting. And I spent 1 year there. Which it was a 3-year program. It was super intense. I'm talking Shakespeare, yoga, voice classes, movement classes. I mean, it was a conservatory program. So after being there for a year, I thought it was best for me to get back to New York City and get on stage. I was in every stage production I did at the theater school in Chicago. I had the lead role, and I had some very intense training. And so I was ready, got back to New York City.
So I think I found my Raymond for my play.
All right, absolutely. You wrote a play?
Yeah, I have the book, and I wrote a play to the book.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mhm.
I would love to. But yeah, let me know. Send me a script. Email it to me.
Okay, and you know what? I'm curious. I mean, you have so much training, and I mean, your bio. I mean, you did, like you said, you worked in the industry for so many years, and film and television and commercials and music videos, and the list just goes on and on. So, what made you, go from, that career to now? I think I want to become a mayor. What made that decision? What made you interested in that?
So what happened was when I was in New York City doing great work, film, off Broadway, television, film. I was a member of SAG since 1991, Screen Actors Guild, which is now SAG-AFTRA. Um, in 2000, there was a commercial strike,
Mm-hmm.
and film work dried up unless you were an A-list actor in New York.
Okay.
And so I started substituting in the middle schools and high schools in Newburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And the pastor was like, why, since the film stuff and the theater stuff kind of slow in the early 2000s, he said, why don't you start substituting? And so
Mm-hmm.
I started substituting, and I walked into a history class at Heritage Junior High School at that time for a guy named Mr. Van Voorst. And I asked the kids what were they studying in American history, and they said the Reconstruction period. So I went to the board and I just started writing the 13th Amendment, abolition of slavery, unless you're duly convicted of a crime. 14th Amendment granted former slaves citizenship, equal rights and protection under law, prohibits discrimination in housing and employment. 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote, 1865 to 1877. Boom. And I started writing these notes, and these kids were saying, oh my gosh, Mr. Harvey, we thought you were a substitute. See, when you go to a historically black college or university, history, you don't even have to be a history major. You're going to be exposed to a
Right.
significant amount of history, especially African American history.
Right.
So I started teaching about the Reconstruction, and it was an outer body experience. I felt like a fish in water because, Shakespeare says all the world's a stage and all the men and women are merely players, and every man and woman in their day plays many parts. We all have our exits and our entrances. So if all the world's a stage, according to Shakespeare, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in this classroom with like 30 middle school kids in the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me what topic they were studying. And I loved history. I
Mm-hmm.
always have.
Mm-hmm.
And as a theater major, you got to study history. You got to know the history, the time periods of the play. You got to know all this stuff. So being a theater major is like being a history major, an economics major, being this, because you got to know the given circumstances of all the plays. When did the play take place? What setting? What were the economic and social conditions that might historically contextualize to the play and stuff like that? And so, it was always studying history, if you're doing so anyway, so I taught the lesson, and then I got a long-term sub assignment at the high school, Newburgh Free Academy. And that was in 99, 2000 school year. And I never left. I'm still teaching history 24 years later.
Wow.
It's 1999, 2000. And I went back to school at night at Mount St. Mary College again and got my master's degree in secondary education with a focus and concentration on history. And then got certified by the state of New York, took all those state exams, and I'm permanently certified. They don't even offer permanent certifications anymore in New York State as a secondary education teacher. So I got my permanent certification, my master's degree in teaching, education in history, so pedagogical science and all that. And then I was like, I can still do my theater or my film in the summers because teachers typically have summers off. I've only had one summer off in 24 years. So while I was teaching, to answer your question, Keisha, I was teaching also 12th grade government.
Wow.
Teaching government civics, economics, and stuff like that. and you start learning, how the city, state, and federal governments are organized and how they functions when you talk about legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. The judiciary, interprets the law, the U.S. Constitution. All that stuff is all the stuff I've been teaching for 20 some odd years. So after like my 16th year teaching, I had already bought a house in Newburgh for my wife and my kids. We bought a house, and the taxes went up. I bought a house in 2005. By 2008, we had a housing crisis because of predatory lending. In 2008, 2009, around the time that Barack Obama got elected president. And that's what sparked my interest to go into politics because, one, Barack Obama, first African American president in the United States history. And then two, our taxes in the city of Newburgh went up so high because everyone's property values and assessments went so low because of the housing crisis.
Right. Now, what qualities should a mayor need to have to be effective? What are the roles that a mayor plays?
Well, and it depends on what city and how large and how small the city is. It depends on how the city charter that you're going to serve in, how it's written, right? So for me, the mayor in the city of Newburgh is technically not a full-time mayor. The mayor in the city of Newburgh is a part-time mayor and is a city manager that works, that's the point of authority over the day-to-day activity and over the departments. In a large city like New York City, the mayor is a full-time mayor, and there is no city manager. So that's why I'm able to still teach, which is what I love to do.
Right, because that's what I was gonna ask you. Now that you're the mayor, is it hard to follow your dreams of acting? But like you said, that's something you can still do because you're not full-time, just doing that. So that still gives you the options of doing what you want to do.
Correct. So there's a lot of flexibility. I mean, I work around the clock as the mayor because when you take on this role, which I got elected as a councilman in 2015, sworn in 2016. It's a 4-year term for the city council at large. And 2 years into my first term, the mayor had got terminally ill, and she asked me to finish her term. Yeah, 2 more years. I had 2 more years as a councilman. So I had to resign as a councilman, and then someone had to make a motion to appoint me on the council, and then I got unanimously voted in April the 23rd, 2018 as mayor. And of course, studying the city charter, looking at the organizational structure of the city government and city of Newburgh, I said, I don't have to leave my teaching job. All the council meetings are at night. I'm the chair of the council. The mayor's chairman of the board. And the meetings are at night, so I can still teach during the day. When I leave the high school, I go straight to City Hall every day. And I take meetings and I take phone calls, go on conference calls. And, and I perform weddings and I do all these other ceremonial things, ribbon cuttings, new businesses. I'm a part of the executive team with making decisions, but I'm also part of the council because I'm the chairman of the council, and I get to participate in legislation of the city.
And what kind of challenges do you face, on a daily basis as mayor, and how do you handle it?
Oh, I've been battle tested. So in 2018, not about a month after I was sworn in as mayor, we had a tornado. So that was my first experience in getting in the emergency response team, of being a part of the emergency response team and dealing with a natural disaster when literally tornado lasted 25 minutes in our city. And we had to mobilize, the Salvation Army, mobilize first responders. We had to also mobilize and help the elderly, and get dry ice in our city and food. And oh my gosh, and the power was out, and we had one fatality. So very much, like I said, that was the first challenge. And after that, we found out that there was PFAS, which is a chemical that was in our main drinking source.
Wow.
So again, emergency response. Now we're dealing with state officials, Department of Environmental Conservation, and DEC at the state level. We're dealing with the Department of Defense, DOD, because that's where the contamination came from, one of our military bases here in
Mhm.
the city. Um,
Well,
and then
Mayor Harvey, I
yeah,
tell you, the time just goes so quick, but I want to get this question in. Uh,
okay.
what are your plans for the future? Because I know you have a lot going on. Like I said, your bio is just amazing. But what are your plans for the future, and how do you define success? If you can answer those two questions.
Well, number one, I'm running for re-election right now, and
Awesome.
we are rebuilding our city back better. We got
Mhm.
$120 million of infrastructure upgrades. We had a $32 million North Interceptor relocation, so we're not going to be dumping 56 gallons of raw sewage into our Hudson River, which is
Okay.
an estuary. Uh,
Mhm.
and so I want to finish my term. We got a new hotel spot coming into our city. We got 7 development projects for mid-income and affordable housing.
Okay.
So that's I want to do one more term, 4 years, and then I'll be looking at state and maybe the White House in the near future.
Gotcha.
And so who
And you
knows?
get there because of your drive, so I know you'll
Yeah.
get there.
And how I define success, I define success with continuity,
Mhm.
consistency, and discipline. If
Mhm.
you are consistent, if you have the discipline, and
Mhm.
you know and understand the value of continuity and being consistently working at stuff, even if you are even if you are a failure sometimes can be the platform for success. Chase your dreams, live your best life,
Yes.
your best life, and then shoot for the moon. And at least if you don't reach the moon, you'll be among the stars.
Right. I like that. And I tell you, I'm gonna have to get you back on the show because the time just goes so quick. But this was such an
Yeah,
awesome interview. And I'm just so grateful and honored that you would say yes and actually come on the show. And thank you
absolutely.
for being my very special guest. Any
Yeah.
last remarks real quick on how they can find you if they want to look up, your
Yes,
information. How can they find you real quick before we have to end the show?
yes, please go to www.torranceharvey.com. That's www.torranceharvey.com. That's TORRANCEHARVEY. I've got my own website, torranceharvey.com. You can find my book, Ja Sankofa, America, America. I'm all digital platforms.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you can even
I'm
just
going to put
Google.
all of that on the screen so they'll know where to get the information from. And I just want to say thank you to all of you who tuned on. Please join me next week for another episode of the Keiwear Show. You can follow me on all social media platforms and on the internet. The information that's for Mayor Harvey will be listed on the screen. And always remember, Keiwear is the key to knowledge. God bless you all.